Welcome to the Palmetto Publishing YouTube channel. Joan Brady to chat more about her book, Murder and Serenity. She's going to be giving some really awesome author insight, which will be super helpful for anyone looking into self-publishing with Palmetto. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on this video. Today we're here at Palmetto Publishing. We're thrilled to chat with Joan Brady about her latest release, Murder and Serenity. This gripping summer thriller follows the journey of Deana, a seasoned woman navigating the open sea. At 60 years young and freshly retired from a life absent of adventure, Deana finds herself embroiled in intrigue as a paid travel companion thrust into the midst of art theft and murder all aboard a cruise ship. Joan's inspiration from this novel stemmed from her observation of a lack of empowerment literature featuring women in their 60s and beyond. Joan, drawing from her own travel escapades and memorable cruises, she weaves a tale that captivates and enthralls readers.
I'm Joan Brady, and this is my debut novel, Murder and Serenity. Murder and Serenity is part murder at sea, part art heist at sea, and really more coming of age for the mature woman. It's about family loyalty, it's about deceit, and a little bit of love. My background is not as an author. I am a first-time debut author. I've dabbled in quite a few different things. That's what happens when you get to be my age. I am currently the owner of a lobbying company. We do legislative lobbying for the South Carolina General Assembly. And prior to that, I actually served in the South Carolina General Assembly in the House of Representatives. Prior to that, I served in county government on Richland County Council. And prior to that, I was mayor of a teeny tiny small town right outside of Columbia, South Carolina called Arcadia Lakes. In my younger years, I did have a background in media. I worked for the NBC affiliate in Columbia, WIS-TV, and before that I was with South Carolina Educational Television. I'm a graduate of the University of South Carolina School of Journalism, and I attended high school in Columbia, South Carolina. But probably the best production of my life has been my 3 children. I have 3 adult children and 3 grandchildren, and I feel that I'm very fortunate to have them in my life. Murder and Serenity really came as, I guess, a hobby. I just wanted to do a little bit of writing on the side. If it was a cloudy day, I would write. If it was a sunny day, I would write. If I was happy, I would write. If I was sad, I would write. There was really no rhyme or reason to it. But it was just cathartic to get my thoughts down and little vignettes of stories. And so I started with a combination, a lot of grouping of different stories or chapters, and then tried to bring them all together with the main theme of murder. But again, Murder and Serenity is about murder, but it's about a whole lot more, which the average woman is about a whole lot more. And that's what I wanted to write about. I wanted to write about an average woman who found herself in an extraordinary situation and how she had to use those life experiences to get herself out of a predicament. Murder and Serenity is my debut novel, and it is available online from Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It is also available in ebook from Kindle, and also available in Audible. I just finished doing the narration, so there's no excuse not to read Murder and Serenity.
At Palmetto Publishing, we recognize that many authors may grapple with questions, misconceptions, or simply feel lost at the outset of self-publishing a book. Our goal is to address genuine queries from authors just like you while exploring Joan's story and its potential impact on fellow authors. So what kind of first led you during your research process to stumble upon Palmetto Publishing?
Writer, this is my debut novel, Murder and Serenity. I was very naive to the process. I assumed, well, I've written my book, now I'll just send it out to publishers and they will be waiting with bated breath. And then I waited and I waited. And I really did get very impatient. Again, as a first-time writer, author, I really didn't know what to expect. And so I started looking into the possibility and the process of self-publishing. Fortunately for me, one of my very dear friend's daughters works for Palmetto Publishing, and in speaking with her, she explained the process, the ease of the process. It was an easy process, and she continues to guide me at this point with questions, any updates, revisions, etc. It's been a very good partnership with Palmetto Publishing.
Oh, wonderful. So happy to hear that. So you work with Erin, she's one of our project managers, and she is incredible at her job, folks. She works a lot with illustrators and children's books, so she's really got a knack for that kind of thing, but I was so glad that she was kind of able to help you with your unique project, and glad that you guys had that background before. She's so wonderful to work with. I know, Joan, when we had spoken in the past, you had talked about how this manuscript was kind of something that you sat on for a little bit, you know? It was something that you kind of picked up and down when you were kind of doing like a hobby of writing almost, and it took you about 5 to 6 years to kind of get there and complete that manuscript. You had a little bit of a push from some family members. Can you tell me a little bit more about those conversations, and how can indie authors like yourself kind of get through those barriers?
Yes, I am not a disciplined writer. I'm not that person that gets a mug of coffee at 5 a.m. in the morning and sits by a window for an hour and writes. It was, in fact, a hobby, just, you know, amusing, something I would do. There really wasn't a connecting thread at the beginning. I kind of had a little story here, a little story there, a little chapter here, and sometimes I would just let it sit for 6 or 8 months. Of course, you know, when you come back, you always think it's terrible, whatever. So I had to gain some more confidence as a writer. And really it was my 2 sons, because they said, Mom, you know, not that we're tired about hearing about this project, but it's time to realize it. And they said, if nothing else, we would love to have a book that we can put on our bookshelves for the future. And so last spring I decided that it's the time. I'm going to do it, and that's when I got in touch with Palmetto Publishing, and the rest is history.
I'm so glad to hear that your sons were kind of that voice of reason in your head saying, Mom, you've got to do this. We obviously see potential in this story, and so most likely other people out there would probably do the same. So really glad that you had that family member kind of give you that extra tough love and say, you've got to publish this. So you started working with Erin, kind of began the publishing process. Through it all, what are some things that kind of surprised you about the publishing process with Palmetto?
I was very pleased with the personal touch. You know, they say there are no stupid questions, but there are a lot of stupid questions, and I'm sure that I asked many of them. But Erin and Nicole, another person with Palmetto Publishing I worked with, were very, very good with me. You know, very patient. I also was very impressed with the caliber of the editing. You know, I'd only read through my manuscript like 100 times, but I was very pleased, delighted, and incented by the editors, because I think that we had 2 of them eventually. Some of the, not only the grammatical corrections, and there weren't that many of those, but just how to elaborate on a paragraph, or how to extend a character and give a little bit more information on them. So that was very, very important, as was the cover. In my mind, I had an idea of what I wanted, and I had seen a photograph, and I wanted that photograph, but I also wanted the photograph to have more of an artistic look to it. My book has a lot of art in it, and you know, here's a little giveaway. It has to do with the missing Vincent van Gogh. So I wanted those same burnished colors and the look of a painter's art strokes. And again, the design people were excellent, and if I said I need a little bit more of this, the hat needs to be bigger, or what needs to be there, they were very obliging, and again, very, very patient. And I think that's a key thing. There are plenty of authors, there may not be their first book, but for a debut author like myself, understanding that this is the first time that I am entering into this process, to be surrounded by a group of people who in fact wanted to help me. They wanted to help me publish the best finished product.
I love that you said that. I think for so many authors, you spend so much time working on this manuscript. I mean, you dedicated, 5.5 to 6 years of your life just working on it. So this project is literally your baby. And when you come to us, we want to make sure that we are taking the most gentle love and care with your project. And I think the people at Palmetto, all of our colleagues, they really love what they do. They love reading, they love writing. Some of them are self-published authors as well. So they understand what goes into the process, and they treat authors' work the same way they would treat their own. All right, so let's chat a little bit about the cover design as well. The designer put kind of an effect over it that gives it the look of a painting, which is really neat. It ties in perfectly to the theme of the book. I know Deana is involved in kind of this mystery thriller art heist in the book, which is super cool. And then also within the book, there's little elements that tie into the story, also little anchors and life preservers that kind of help tell the story. Can you share a little bit more about that process of kind of your vision for what you wanted the book to look like, incorporating those, and how do you feel like that kind of elevates the story?
I did in fact have an idea in my mind. Now, having said that, the design team sent me several proofs to look at, but I kind of still went back to the original idea that I had, and I did in fact find a stock photograph, but I wanted the feel of a painting, and I also wanted the burnished oranges and the colors that Van Gogh uses in his painting, because he plays an integral part in this story. And even the straw hat, it had a smaller straw hat, but the straw hat is an element in the story, so they were able to kind of make a more fringy looking hat on it. There were little things like her foot was underneath a railing, and then I wanted her foot over a railing. Again, very accommodating and very easy to work with. I was delighted. I did have a little surprise on the back cover. There's actually bobbing in the water is kind of the corner of the missing painting, which is called On the Road to Terrason by Vincent van Gogh. So if you're really exploring the entire cover and back, you could see that little hint bobbing in the water.
I love it. A little bit of foreshadowing of
Yes.
what's to come for the reader.
Mm-hmm.
Very neat. Well, tell me a little bit more. Let's kind of talk about the publishing process. We understand it's a big commitment, takes a lot of time, takes finances. So what are some kind of pieces of advice you could offer about the self-publishing process, as well as if you could recommend any kind of free programs out there for authors to utilize? I know you mentioned that you had used Microsoft Word, which has track changes and some other really great kind of free resources within it. Can you chat a little bit more about that?
When you self-publish, you are taking on a huge responsibility. Now, you have a great publisher like Palmetto Publishing. They're certainly going to guide you through the process, but basically, you're it. And so even before you get to the point of having your manuscript published, at least for me, I wanted it to be as clean a piece as possible. So yes, I did use grammar check. That was probably the extent of it, grammar check, and then I was counting how many words I had. But the editing is most important. And there's a variety of menus that you can choose at Palmetto Publishing, but I would be very hesitant, certainly as a first-time author, to put anything out there that had not gone through at least one round of the editing process, because it is your piece. You've looked at it a million times, and you'd be amazed what you don't see. And maybe it's just a misplaced period, but sometimes it's just the word. When somebody else looks at it, they'd say, well, that word is good, but why don't you think about this? And that's very important too. The editors did not make the changes. They made suggestions and recommendations so that ultimately everything was in my own words and was presented in the form that I wanted to tell the story.
Wonderful. I think that is really a testament to kind of when you talk about the editing and the fact that you use grammar check and things like that. You can use those free tools, and those are wonderful while you're in the kind of primary stages of self-publishing, but nothing compares to having the work taken to a professional editor and having their thoughts and opinions and edits. I think those just really are what sets a good book apart from a great book. So I'm so glad you took advantage of those editing services with Palmetto. Another thing too is what you talk about, the fact that the editors don't kind of leave the changes up to themselves. It is a partnership at the end of the day. The thing with Palmetto is that authors do still have 100% creative control at the end of the day. So while that part may feel like, oh, this is a lot of work, I've got to go through everything, I've really got to take a fine-tooth comb and make sure that these are the changes that I agree with, or maybe not, maybe you want to keep changes in there. I think that kind of also alludes to the fact that we 100% believe that at the end of the day, it should be your work, it should be your words. So I'm glad that you were able to take advantage of those services and see the benefit through those. That's awesome.
And I think it's also important that the editors are anonymous, so it's not like it's a friend or even somebody, brick and mortar that you're going in and you see the publisher. They just really have to take an objective look at your piece of work, and as the author, you have to accept that objective perspective, because in the long run, it does in fact make the body of the work that much better.
Exactly, and your reader will be unbiased as well, so hopefully they can see it from the point of view of maybe a reader in the future. So it's always good to kind of get that, critical, constructive feedback from someone. So Joan, since your book is about kind of this like vacation, thriller, murder mystery, art heist, it covers so many great topics. It is going to be a great summer read. I know I was even thinking I would love to read this book on the beach. I definitely will. But you have talked about how you are getting ebook and audiobook formatting. Can you chat a little bit more about that process, working with Palmetto through that, and how those formats can make your book even more accessible, especially the fact that we're coming up on summer vacation now and readers are going to want to have those accessible formats?
That was another important element. Again, I didn't know, I was naive, so walking you through the process, Palmetto Publishing also gets your book on the platforms such as Amazon, Barnes & Noble, as well as the ebook, which is a little different format, but they will format that for you so you don't have to worry about it. And it has really been surprising to me how many people have a Kindle. They just don't want a hardback or a softback anymore. They want their Kindle. And even more so because my book is about a mature character. That's not old, I'm not saying old, but a mature woman. And that seems to be a lot of my target group are women that are maybe in their 50s, 60s. And it's a little hard to read the small print sometimes. So I decided to do an audiobook, which will be on Audible, and it should be up and running very, very soon. That was quite an arduous experience, though. That's a whole other part of putting a book out. For me, I did the narration, and so it was many hours. The book itself, I think the audiobook is going to be 10 and a half hours of listening, and it took a lot more of that for recording. But I wanted there to be a variety of different platforms, whether it is hardback, soft, paperback, a Kindle ebook, or Audible. Basically, other than coming and telling you the story in your living room, I wanted to be sure that you had an opportunity and access to Murder and Serenity, and we have it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, that is going to help reach so many more people. And again, it'll be perfect for those summer vacations. I know that I will definitely be getting an ebook copy because I like to read on my Kindle when I go to the beach. So that'll be perfect. And then you don't have to worry about getting your book all messed up in the waves and the sand and all that.
and also taking a walk or a run along the beach, or just at home walking around your neighborhood. I just finished an audio book, and it was my companion for whatever I was doing during the day. So I think that's a wonderful way to get access to a novel and to Murder and Serenity.
Agreed. So Joan, you're actually visiting us in town in Charleston. You were invited to Barnes & Noble to do a book signing, which is super exciting. So congratulations on that. Can you chat with me a little bit more about how you approach different bookstores and events and things like that, and getting those set up, and what advice do you have for authors looking to do the same?
Research. In terms of getting them into the indie bookstores, there are not as many indie bookstores as they used to be, and there is a process. Again, when I first wrote my book, I was down here in Charleston, and I was in Mount Pleasant, and my son and I ran over to a local bookstore just thinking they were just waiting to open the doors because my book was ready. No. They get hundreds of requests, probably thousands of requests, and that's not even including the publishers who are sending them books. So now you go online, you decide a bookstore in your community and beyond, and you go online and they have a form and you have to fill out your name, etc., a brief synopsis on the book, and then they get back in touch with you. But as in any sales situation, you have to be assertive and you have to do follow-up as well. One thing that Palmetto Publishing did do, they put out a newswire release when my book was released, and so I use that because it has background not only on the book, but it has a bio and a picture of me. So that's something that I can send on to different bookstores. I also send my bio as well, and always to be sure that you have a picture of the cover so they know what the book actually looks like. There are a lot of different avenues that you can pursue. I mean, some are more expensive than others. Obviously, the best, I guess, would be to get an agent, but this project hasn't warranted that yet for me. And one thing I do wish that there was a good listing of independent bookstores. You can go online and you can find them, which I did. And for me personally, I wanted to start within a radius. I live in Columbia, South Carolina, and so I have it in 9 bookstores. I have it in stores along the coast. I have it up in Charlotte in a bookstore. So I wanted to start locally, and hopefully organically, then the book will spread. But it is difficult to get in bookstores, and it's sort of a catch-22 because sometimes they will not carry your book unless you do a book signing, and the reverse is they won't give you a book signing unless you've sold so many books. So you have to kind of go bookstore by bookstore. In terms of Barnes & Noble, that was in Columbia, and they featured me as an author for the day. But you can only get the book at Barnes & Noble online, which is fine. Also, don't forget the public library. I was a featured author in Columbia at the Richland County Library the week before last. And don't just concentrate on book shops. I just did a book signing at a woman's clothing and gift shop, and I have another couple of those. So little shops, and of course, people that you know are going to be much more inviting to having you in there because they know when you come, you're going to be bringing people. So you have to be very active on social media, and you have to use that social media because they're offering you the space, but they want you to bring the people into these book signings or into these bookshops.
Exactly. I'm so glad that you brought up the fact that you weren't just looking at bookstores, but also places like boutiques, shops, things like that, festivals, events. We tell authors this all the time, is to really think outside of the box. I almost said think outside of the book, but that too. Think outside of the box when you're looking to market your book, because you need to go and find kind of not only where you think readers are going to be, but where other potential readers can be, which if you're targeting, older women and they go to these places to shop, that's going to be a great place to kind of catch them and say, hey, let me chat with you about my book. It's also going to be kind of like a more intimate and personal experience where they can actually see the author and get to spend a little bit more time with you and really become interested in the story and the characters and kind of your brand. So we tell authors all the time, really try to think outside of the box again. Go through and make a list of literally every single organization, community, group that you are involved with. There are definitely opportunities that people don't think of places where they can get their book out to, events they can go to. And even if it's a small local event, it's better to do that than to try to cast, this really wide net and then not get any return on it. So.
And I'll tell you, one of the best outlets are book clubs. Mm-hmm. And I've been on the circuit. I've been doing book clubs, throughout South Carolina. I'm available for book clubs. But what's wonderful about that, again, it's the intimate setting, but everyone's already bought the book when you get there. So that's depending on the size, 15, 20 people. And if they haven't bought the book, I bring books with me to sell. So that has been wonderful. I've sold a lot of books that way. You really have your targeted audience right there and your targeted buyers. So don't forget about book clubs. Again, it's a little hard. There's not really a big listing of book clubs. They're kind of private, neighborhood by neighborhood, but you have friends and just, and especially women. Lots and lots of women are in book clubs, and there's lots of wine involved. And I have to tell you, did a book club the other night. It was so cute. They did a nautical theme for me because of the book and cruise things and music, Caribbean music. But on the wine glasses, everybody had to put a word from my book. And it was really delightful to me as an author to see what the readers had picked out as something either pertinent or important, and I knew they had read the book.
There you go. Well, that just shows too that it's not just about marketing your book. You've got to go a step further and you've got to engage readers and really start to build that community, because this is your debut novel, but when that next one comes out, those people who are at those, bookshops, the book clubs, the boutiques, they're going to be the ones who are like, I've got to go get this next book. So that's great. You're already building your community, which I love to see. That reading is a trend that is never going away. If anything, it's getting even bigger these days. In 2022, over 4 million books were published, which is crazy, but that's good. That keeps us in jobs, right? But let's talk a little bit about how you kind of help your book and brand to stand out. What do you do to kind of stand out amongst the crowd when there's so much out there?
Being an author sounds like a very wonderful, erudite thing, but after your book is published, you're really a saleswoman or a salesman. And as in any sales situation, you need to target your audience. Again, for my genre, my book is about a mature, I like the word seasoned, heroine. And I know that the appeal is more to women. Men would get great insight on women if they would read this book, but probably women are my targeted audience. And particularly, I think women who are, in their more senior years. The whole idea was to have a heroine who kind of has to take stock of all the experiences in her life and put it together to solve this murder. So knowing your targeted group so you're just not all over the place is important. For me, I think one of the more difficult things has been having to peg into a genre. If you go into a Barnes & Noble or Books A Million, and you see, shelves and shelves of books, well, there are little titles on the top of it: fiction, nonfiction, mysteries, and my book really doesn't fit into one particular subtitle. It is a murder mystery, but it's really a coming of age, a rite of passage for a woman my age. So that's been a little bit more difficult, trying to decide and figure out exactly what path and where this book should go. But again, that's where social media comes in, and you just have to promote, but be sure that you are promoting and targeting to an acceptable and probably a future audience of readers and purchasers.
So Joan, at the beginning of the interview, we chatted about your sons who had encouraged you to publish the book. And they told you, Mom, even if we just get this book on the bookshelf, you've got to do it because you've worked so hard on this project, and they wanted to see it come to life. So authors come to us from all different backgrounds, which means all different types of goals for their published works. So that can look like, for one author, maybe being on a bestsellers list, maybe selling X amount of copies, or just putting out a book. They just want to have a physical book with their name on it to put on their bookshelf and be proud of. So chat with me a little bit more kind of about your goals at the beginning of your self-publishing journey and how those have evolved to now. What do those look like for you?
I probably had romanticized goals right at the beginning, but I really did not have big expectations. Again, when you are a debut novelist, and I'm not even comfortable with the word author or writer, I still consider myself a storyteller. I love to tell stories. So for me, I had told this, what I thought was a wonderful story, certainly an entertaining story. I just really tried to think of my friends or my social group of people. Won't it be fun for them to read this? I hope they will enjoy it as much as I have, and I hope that everybody can identify a little bit with the main character. And in turn, that has really been the effect. especially going out to book clubs where I have an opportunity to have one-on-one feedback from people. They enjoy the book, they like the book, and you know, that's perfectly fine for me. Would the book make a great movie? Yes, it would make a fabulous movie, but if I can just get this story, this wonderful little story out and have people enjoy it, and one lady said, I took Saturday afternoon and I just sat, and she said, I just couldn't put it down, I just kept reading. I said, well, that is a wonderful expectation and that is a wonderful result.
Oh, that's awesome. And even if one story touches one person, it's done its job at that point, you know? And just publishing a book in itself, that is such a feat that most, you know, writers, they don't even get to that part. So it's a really big accomplishment, and I hope you know that you've gone above and beyond with kind of what most people can even do. So it's something to be very proud of. So this is your debut novel now, Murder and Serenity, that is out now, available on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all the different platforms, ebook and soon to be audiobook, which is amazing. I can't wait to hear it in your voice.
Yes.
What comes next for you now? What's next in your literary career?
Well, it took me quite a while to write this. I think this is what I would tell writers. You should have 2 novels going simultaneously, truthfully, because once one goes out, and if it, you know, does get good results, good acclaim, people were clamoring for another one, and people said, you know, where's the sequel? I said, the sequel, you know, just got to have the prequel. You know, I have some ideas for other books, and when I do these book clubs and these different speaking engagements, I kind of use them as a test group too, and I kind of throw out, well, what if this or what if that, for feedback. For me, I am not a dedicated writer. It takes me time, and mainly it takes me, I don't have a problem with the flow of words as I'm writing. I have trouble with finding the time to stop. If I start writing at 3 in the afternoon, it's 3 in the morning. And I just don't have that or those blocks of time. So hopefully moving forward, I will be a little bit more disciplined and I can get something out a little bit more quickly. And I do want to see how this goes. I would probably write another book even if nobody read it except for my family, just because it's been an enjoyable process. But it's difficult and it is expensive, you know, money well spent. And I think unfortunately sometimes when you self-publish, it's considered vanity publishing, but it's not vanity or being vain if you believe in yourself and you have a good story that you want to share with people. So that's, I would encourage people, and so many folks are telling me, well, I want to do a book. Do it, just do it. And it took me 5 years. You don't have to do it and get it out tomorrow, but sit down, get your thoughts down. I don't write on paper. I do everything on the computer. It's just easier for me. But you know, if you want to carry a notebook, that's the way you prefer to write. Just do it, because somebody at some time will appreciate that you put those thoughts down.
Right. Well, we can't wait to see what you do next, because the first book has already been so amazing and everything that's come with it. So we're super excited for what's to come. I'm hoping it'll be a series because I want to find out more about Deana and what she's going to get into. Well, Joan, thank you so much for coming to chat with us today in Charleston with Palmetto Publishing. It was so wonderful to hear about your debut novel, Murder and Serenity, that is out now on all platforms. Guys, if you're interested in checking out Joan's book online and purchasing a copy, we'll have that down in the link in our bio. It'll be linked on our Instagram as well, so you can check that out. Get your copy for your summer vacation,
Absolutely.
of course. And so much for being with us here today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.